Okay, let me see the queue. We have only 3 people out of 50. Okay, that's a superbly beautiful percentage. Nice. So this is what I will do. Okay, let me go to the week 7 uh, questions of some previous year questions. I think previous term question or previous year question, whatever. 6 questions from those two, from that 5 to week 7 I will solve. I will discuss. And then primarily I will discuss week 8 concepts, little bit of conceptual things. Okay, and if time permits, then maybe we will move into week 8 question solving. But what I feel is, in the previous quiz revision session also I told this, if you are comfortable with the concepts, you don't need to solve thousands of previous year questions. This is not a competitive exam where, and I am saying this because this has happened multiple times. This is not a competitive exam where you need to, let's say, solve thousands of questions to increase your speed or something like that. If you understand the concept properly, you don't have to solve one single previous year or previous term question. Okay, any question comes, you will be able to answer. So please be comfortable with the concepts, because that's what will stay with you in the long run. So let me share the screen. And I'm not quite well today, so that's why I said if my voice becomes suddenly unclear, please tell me about that. So I will discuss a few week 7 questions from previous terms. Let us see. This is, I think, week 6 question regarding hash set. Acha, in the meantime, again, one more thing I want to ask. So, is there someone who wants to point out any specific topic, or I will attach the printer, any specific topic of week 7 and 8 which you want to be discussed properly, or yeah? So please go ahead and tell me. Let me make a note of it. Any specific topic, okay? Don't tell the whole week 8. I have doubt that anyway we will discuss. But any specific topic, and don't raise your hand. Unmute yourself and tell me, okay?
How about type eraser, sir?
Type eraser is, I think, week 6, but okay. Since I am doing revision session for week 7 and 8 primarily, so yeah, but still okay. Anyways, still we will figure that out later.
Sir, what about higher order functions?
Okay, yeah. So that is week 8. Anything else? So week 8, since I will discuss anyways, that's not an issue. But week 7 topics, any specific topic, because I will go into question solving now. I'm not going into discussion of week 7 concepts. Week 7, any specific concepts you want to have a recap? Okay, fine. Type eraser, regarding higher order function, I will discuss today anyway. Type eraser is something that Cobra will discuss in next session, in the revision session. Okay, don't worry about that. So it's about generic, just briefly speaking. It's about generic, and there are only 2 things that you need to keep in mind while solving problems of type eraser. That is, if there is in the code, if something is given like this, that some t extends some value, right? Something, right? Some value. Then the questions will come that what is the type of this particular. I mean, what will this type get converted to into run in the runtime? So the answer will be this super type. Whatever value is given over here, that will be your answer. If no such value is given like this, if the generic is just normal generic, then the type answer will be object type. I mean, in type erasure, when you go at the runtime, the generics will get bounded to their upper class level. So the upper class, if in case there is something like numbers or something given over here in the using the extends keyword, then this will be your answer. Otherwise, if nothing is given, it's not bounded. So in that case, the answer will be object class. And most of the question is based upon this concept. Now there can be some permutation combinations of question regarding this. So maybe a function might be given to you like fun, and maybe the parameter over here can be something like maybe, let's say, a number type parameter is given to you. But I mean, a class, suppose t obj is given. Okay, maybe this t is defined to be t extends number. Okay, something like this is given before the in the fun definition, I mean, right? And then t object is given, and then the function is written. And then again, another fun is given, where let us say I am considering, or let's say not number. Let's take an example with the custom class. Suppose there is a class called, let me write properly only, public t extends, let's say, employee, right? And void fun, right? Something like this, and t object, and then something is written in the definition. Likewise, I have another function, public void fun, and then maybe so as you can see that these are two overloaded function, and since the type is different, I mean, one is generic type, another is employee type, so it's allowed in the compile time. There wouldn't be any problem, but at runtime it will I mean, get into trouble, because type erasure will happen for the first function, and the t will be converted to employee type. So this t will get converted to employee, right? And because of this, both the function will essentially be the same thing, and therefore Java wouldn't be able to differentiate between which one to call. So the method overloading which Java normally allows, in this case, the compiler wouldn't be able to differentiate between which function are you calling in case at the running the fun method, right? So in that case, this kind of thing will not be allowed in Java. So type erasure prevents you to do function overloading in many cases, in many scenarios. So you have to be careful about how you do function overloading in case you have used generic types, particularly bounded generic types. So this kind of question might come from type erasure, or they will directly ask you a question like the one I said, that if any code is written in this format, then what is the type at runtime? Stuff like that. Anyway, some questions will be discussed on this in the next session, hopefully. But the concept is pretty much this much only, whatever I discussed.
Sir, one small conceptual doubt I have regarding the type.
Ask us.
Sir, like we know that during the runtime, the generic type will be like it will be forgotten, no, sir. So during the runtime, whatever it is running, it will point to the object class or what, sir?
In case you have not bounded it, so that's what I said. So let's say you are using a generic like this, normal generic, right? This t, suppose class ABC, and then maybe you wrote a t over here, and then you defined something t value over here, and whatever then, right? So this t will be bounded. I mean, this t will become object type at runtime. But in case you have written another class XYZ, over here T extends, suppose number, and then you have written T well, and then something. So this T will get bounded to numbers. It will not get up to object. So if you have a bounded generic, then the upper limit will be this type which will be considered at runtime. If you have no bindings, right, no upper limit, so then object in that case.
Okay, like if there is a child, parent, or inheritance, then you just bind it to the parent class.
Exactly. Uppermost level parent, right? So if I have numbers, not numbers, let's say some employee is there, then maybe there is something, some manager, okay, then maybe something, whatever, XYZ. So like this, if you have a chain of inheritance, and at this level I am asking you, then the binding will be employee, the topmost, not the
Sir,
middle ones.
In case of primary types, it is all bounded to the wrapper, no, sir?
In case of primary type, oh yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, like inside the generic, if they give some like integer, string, or boolean, then it is again like linked to the integer in the wrapper class. No?
In case generic means if integer is given, then there is no question of T or, I mean, the generic variable, right? What are you asking exactly?
No, like once, sir, you create a generic, and during the object creation, if you pass a integer, like if you want to create a integer or if you want to create boolean, in that case, it'll like when it is running, it'll link to the wrapper class, right?
Yeah. That too anyway will happen. Correct. No.
Okay, sir. Okay. This was the only doubt.
Yeah. Anyways, we will discuss this topic in detail. Kubra will discuss in next session. But yeah, essentially this is questions might come in this form only. I mean, some tricky, some we will maybe do some permutation combination on this concept, yeah. So primarily the concept is this thing, that binding, I mean at the runtime the binding will reach the uppermost level in case there is a extends keyword is used. So whatever is mentioned after extends keyword, that will be the upper limit, and in case nothing is used, the object will be the upper limit, object cluster. So any generic will be, let's say, upcasted or converted into that either object type or the extreme super type given after the extends keyword at the runtime in case of generic. That's the only concept. That's type erasure. Fine. No one said anything regarding week 7 concept, so let me just discuss a few questions. Want to say something? Someone wants to say something? Okay, chalo. This is, I think, week 5 question. Okay, exception. Is it readable, whatever is there in the screen, or should I make it a little more bigger?
It's readable, sir.
It's good enough.
Okay. So this is a question, and we have this invalid email exception and regular exception. Since no one said anything regarding the conceptual part, I will not go line by line explaining all the stuff. Okay, I will move a little bit fast. If you have any doubt, ask me. What after that we are defining a class user, and we have a constructor and a data member email. Okay, in the constructor we are assigning the data member file, and then we have a member function called register, and that is throwing a type of exception that we defined earlier over here. Okay. After that, what are we doing? We are adding a try catch block. Okay. In the try catch block, we are checking if email does not contain @ throw new invalid email exception. Okay, fine. If @ is not there, email means this one. Okay. So in the email, if you do not have this @ in this email variable, which we are assigning through constructor, so that means whenever I am creating an object of the user, I will supply a string, and that will be assigned into the email value, email variable, and in the email variable I'm checking in the register method. If @ is not there, then I will throw this exception. Fine. Okay. And then we have this catch clause, which is accepting the exception. And then we are creating another new exception type. And then we are using the init cause, the get cause, init cause, which I discussed in the last session. Init cause, and then we are throwing the newly let's say newly defined exception. The simple question. Fine. Then we have these two users, one with @, one without the @ u1.register, u2.register, cache regular reg exception. Okay. So let us see what happens when we go for u1.register. We are calling the register method with user1 register. User1 email does not have, does have @. So since it does have @, this if will not be executed. We will come to the system.out.println line and print registration successful. So registration successful will be the first printed value, first printed line. And after that, since the function is over now and no exceptions has been thrown, so we will come back to u2.register. Okay, u2.register, we go again into the register method, and email this time does not contain @, so this invalid email exception will be thrown. Since the exception will be thrown, will I come to this registration successful after that?
No, sir. Once the if statement is executed, it won't call it.
No.
Correct. So the point is not only if, so if this exception wouldn't have been there, I would have still executed this registration successful line because it's not under else clause, right? But since it's directly given, so anyway this will be executed after the if statement finishes. But since this exception is thrown, whenever any exception occurs, the context switching happens, which I discussed in the previous session, I think. So when context switching happens, I mean the whole context from the stack is thrown away, and you are given a new context in which you have to work with the catch clause and all that stuff. So basically we are moving from here. Whenever this exception is thrown away, we will be completely moving out and directly come to the catch clause. And this is a completely different context. So whatever you define inside the try block will not be accessible inside the catch block. So what I mean is, if you define a variable inside the try block, let us say integer x, that integer x will not be accessible inside the catch block. I hope those concepts are okay. Now over here I am having this invalid exception which is caught, and then we are basically defining the new exception, chaining it up and throwing it up and throwing it down. So now since again a new exception is thrown, again the context switching will happen, and I will completely come over here outside the try block. Okay, because I was initially in the try block. When the context switching happens, I come outside of the try block and come over here in the catch block. So yeah, so here the regular exception, reg exception will be caught, and then we are printing this line error. So first printed line was registration successful. Second is error, and I'm getting e.get message. So the message of reg exception. So the message of reg exception is registration failed. And after that, throwable e.get cause. So get cause will return the object which has caused the reg exception, and the object which has caused reg exception is invalid email exception. So this e object will be returned. Then we are printing the cause.get cause. So that is cause.get message, which is basically e.get message. So that will be invalid email format, which is corresponding to the invalid email exception message. So first successful will be printed, then registration failed will be printed, and then invalid email format will be printed. Anyone has doubt?
Why are we casting it as throwable?
Why are we where? Oh, over here.
Yeah.
You can cast it in any subtype or.
Is it just to be more generalized, because we don't know what type of a exception was thrown?
Maybe you can say that. Basically, it's just it's allowed, so that's why. If you want to cast it in any subtype, you can do that.
Yeah, that's
There is no such. So if you go into so this is what I feel while making questions of any object-oriented programming or any system design kind of subject. The problem is if you want to address the concepts properly and how they are supposed to be in a question, you need to make the question at least 2-page, 1.5-page long. And Madhavan sir is completely against any question which covers more than 1 page. So yeah, you cannot make questions. So I see primarily I will tell another thing. If you are using the throws keyword over here, ideally we should not have try catch block, because throws is primarily used when we are not wanting to handle the exception at that point. Later on I want to take care of that. So those things are there. So I cannot go into the, let's say, semantics of object-orientedness while we are addressing questions. But yeah, throwable, that's why we have used. It's not something very.
Oh, the reason why I brought this. These are those small things. Instead of a throwable, it had been something else. The questions sometimes come to check with the clarity on that. So
Correct.
I wanted to know whether there is anything hidden meaning behind that, or is it that's
nice. Okay. So, but here it's not like that. Yeah, but yeah, I got the point.
Fortunately.
Yeah, fortunately. So.
Sir, one small doubt, sir. Sir, here if email does not contain it throws the new invalid email exception.
Correct.
Then it goes to the catch of invalid email exception, is it?
Correct, exactly.
That is
whenever there is an exception thrown, right, wherever, I mean inside try, outside try, wherever an exception is thrown, you completely come out of the context. Context means, I mean, in the stack wherever you are present. So now you are inside this try block. So whenever an exception is encountered, you will completely move out of the try block. Right?
That try block, and does it go to the catch block?
This catch, exactly. This catch. It will come to this catch. Why? Because again, I think in the exceptions discussion of week 7, I discussed that this try catch is a pretty beautiful, let's say, tool. I mean, exception handling is a pretty beautiful tool in any programming language. And I discussed the reason regarding that most of the things like loop, any kind of function, whatever tools any programming language is providing you, exception handling works in a completely different way than any of the tools of any programming language. And the reason for that is exception handling works with a part of the system where you generate, whenever try block is started, right, the system generates an internal temporary context. So what is a context? Context is basically when you are calling a function, you are adding a new activation record in the system stack, right? So exception handling works in that kind of manner, a little bit different, but mostly that kind of manner. Whenever you are writing the try block, it's like you are calling another function. It's like, it's not exactly like, but it is like somewhat like that, that you are, as soon as the program sees that you have written try and started a bracket, it assumes that is there in that whatever you write inside the try block is present as if it is a function call, and whatever you write inside it, it is present in a separate area in the stacks. Assume it like that. So whenever, suppose if here a function call was there, right? What I'm saying is, let's say if here I write all of this is basically, let's say till this point is function, or not till this point. Just a second. Till this point. In this point. So this is a function call. Suppose this is a function call, right? And after that, immediately this is the next line after the function call. So what would have happened if you would have called this function? So at this point over here, let's say at this point. So you would go into the function wherever it is defined. You will execute the function, and what will happen? You will come back at this line, right? After just the immediate line after that. So assume exception handling just like that. So whenever a try, and let's say suppose something problematic happened inside that function, or let's say you return a value inside the function. So suppose I have this function fun, and I start writing it over. I have some lines of code. Maybe I wrote a return statement over here, okay, and return some whatever, right? And then maybe this return was under an if condition, and then again I have another else if, right? And then again another return, and something after that is also. Let us say if the first return gets executed, will I execute all these things? No, right?
No, it is gone out of the context.
Exactly. So exception handling is just like that. So once you throw this exception, it's like the context is over. Now I will directly return to the area where this, I mean, kind of this function was called. So I will come to this line. So if you assume in this manner, it will be easy to understand where I will return.
And in this catch, you are again throwing another reg exception.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
If you have not done that, then in the second catch, it will not come. Let's say you have just printed out the error message.
So if I would have just printed out, suppose here I would have printed it out, so then the whole program would have terminated. I mean, this function would have terminated, and I would have come back over. I mean, in the
So
second.
u2.register would have thrown you the error, but it is captured within the register account itself. It will not come to this second catch.
u2.register. Yeah. So in that case, suppose if I do not throw this exception, if I just init cause or something, but then init cause doesn't make any sense because I'm initializing an exception means I want to do something about it. But let us say I initialize this exception but never throw it. So then the whole catch block will be over. I will come in u2. I mean, u2.register will be executed completely. I will come back. And then that's it, because
It will not come to that catch.
Yeah, we cannot execute this, right? So the function will be over.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, we said that this is the output, registration failed, and then invalid email format. So Java package. By the way, in my last session, I said that in the next session, Java package will be discussed. I don't know whether it was discussed or not. Anyways. Fine. So you see over here, what are we doing? We have a package pack1 and another package pack2. So inside the first package, I have class A, and inside the second package, we have a subclass of A, class B extends A. So there are two separate packages. In one of them, I have a class A, and in the other package, I have a subclass of A. Right? Okay. Let us say if I remove this public, okay. So at first, where error will be coming? So at first point of error, what will be the first point of error?
Import.
Import. Nice. So I cannot import pack1.a because I can only import public classes. So fine. So that is one important point, that we are only allowed to import public classes, and therefore you cannot. If I remove this public, then it basically becomes a default class, and default classes are not allowed to be accessible outside the package. Okay. So if I want to, let's say, call a specific method of a class, okay, let us assume like this. If I want to call a specific method of a class, so is it only the access modifier of the class that matters in accessing it? Is it only the function's access modifier, or both of them? In order to access it outside the package, I mean.
Both, sir. Both.
Both. Nice. Okay. So now what should be the, let's come back to the original question. So which four, or line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, which one is wrong, which one is correct?
Sir, 1 and 2.
Line 2 is wrong, sir. Private method.
Nice. Line 1.
Only line 2, sir, right?
It's a private of another package.
You
Because B is extending A.
you cannot directly access private. You have to access it via other.
Nice. So that is line 2 is wrong. That is for sure. Private methods are not accessible outside the class. But what happens for line number 1?
Also is wrong. You can't access that because it's not defined as a
Public.
It's another package. Had the package been the same, you would have been solved.
Exactly. Nice. So A method, the method A method, this method, right? It's basically a default method. Since nothing is mentioned over here, that means it's a default type method. Any default method is also called package private, right? So I think I discussed that on, I don't know which session I discussed. Anyway, so default is package private. Okay. So it's only available inside the package. Now inside the package, whether it's a subclass, whether it's not a subclass, doesn't make any difference. But as long as you are inside the package, you can access it. As soon as you go out of the package, you are not able to access default methods or defaults class. That's why I asked the question by moving this public at first. So therefore, default methods are not accessible. So see, this is the beauty of any exam or any question, that I just asked the same concept before, that whether the classes access modifier and functions access modifier both are both basically decide whether I can access a method or not. I asked this question, all of you answered, yeah, both. But then most of you answered that this line should work. Then see, this is the beauty of questions. So anyways, obviously you cannot access it because it's outside the package, and both the access modifiers are required, although the classes one is public, but this one is default, so you cannot access it outside the package. Any doubt?
Sir, but if there is no other method, sir, then we have to again access the default methods only, no, sir?
Sorry, I didn't get what do you mean? No other
Sir,
method?
Sir, if there is no other method created in the object, then we have to use again the default method which is created, no, sir? So in that case, we cannot use A or what?
That
I
is for
understand
interfaces. That is not access modifier. That is default and static method of interfaces. I think you're talking about that. Okay, so that's not access modifier. Here we are discussing about access modifier. So this access modifiers are public, protected, private, and default. These are the 4 access modifiers which decides how you can access classes and functions in a program.
I think he's confused with you using the word default.
Yeah. So
Absence of any access modifier is what you are meaning. But keep probably looking for the word default is normally meant as a default.
yeah. So if that is the case, then I already said, right, when you do not write anything,
Yeah.
that is basically the default access modifier, because that's by default. It's kind of the name is
I understand,
self-explanatory.
but he probably is confused because that's why he was probably asking about.
Yes, sir. I got confused with the default, like the interface.
What he means is, when there's nothing is mentioned, it cannot be accessed beyond the package.
Yeah, exactly. You can understand it like that. When nothing is mentioned, it cannot be accessed beyond the package, because when nothing is mentioned, the type, I mean, we call it the default type. That's how we speak it out. We call it default type, or we call it package private when nothing is mentioned. So when you, till now you have been writing classes, right, class A, right, and something like that. And this, when you have not mentioned anything before the class, that means that class's access modifier is default. So let me just give a very short recap. So access modifiers are applied on 2 entities in a program, or at least in Java. First is you can apply access modifier on classes, and you can apply access modifier on functions. So what does access modifiers do? They basically decide the accessibility or the range of accessibility of classes and functions, how far you can access them, because now we know what packages are. So therefore the range means whether you can access them inside packages, outside packages, if outside packages, is there any specific condition, stuff like that. So how much you can access it, what is the zone of access of a particular class or a particular function. Now access modifiers applicable to classes. There are two access modifiers which are applicable to classes. First is public and the other one is default. Now this default one, you do not write it, right? If you write just class and whatever employee, then this essentially means you mean to say the default access modifier. You do not write the word default before the class word in order to mean default access modifier. No, you just write class employee. That means essentially you want to mean default access modifier.
There is one more. Private is also there.
I will come to that. I will come to that. So, and then we have the public one, which you write essentially as public, but there will be a but over here, and that but is this is applicable only for upper level classes. Let me delete this. This default, as I said, that in classes there are two types of access modifier applicable, default and public. So these are applicable for top level classes. So what do we mean by top level classes? Top level classes means which are not nested classes, which are not inside another scope or inside another class, so to say. But if you are speaking about, if you are telling about a, let's say, class which is already inside another class or nested class, right? So when nested classes are concerned, access modifiers applicable to nested classes are private, as you have already used in case of iterator and callbacks, right? Or in case of, and also make protected. So all the four access modifiers are applicable to classes, but the top level classes allow you to have public and default, while the nested classes allow you to have both, all the four types: public, private, default, protected, anyone. Okay. So yeah, so that only happens for the nested classes. Coming back to functions, obviously functions have all the four types, starting from public, default, private, and protected. Okay, so these are access modifiers. Now, just briefly mentioning, public is accessible everywhere, within package, outside package, all places. So as long as you make your class public, you will be able to import that class or import any function present inside that class in another package. If you do not make your class public, then you cannot import anything related to that class into another package. So that is point number one. Default is package private. So that means as long as you are inside the package, you can access default classes, you can access default functions. Once you move out of the package, you cannot access or import default classes, or you cannot, let's say, import any function which is defined as default. So even though you have a public class, let's say public class employee, right? And over here I have a method called public, sorry, not public. Over here I have a method called void fun. So you see that, and later on, let's say inside another package. So this is one separate code. Now I have another package. Let's say package. This was package, say pack 1. Okay, and here it is package pack 2. Another code inside package pack 2. If I try to import, let's say pack 1.emp. So this is a perfectly valid statement. No problem with it because the class is public type. But if I later on try to access this fun method, right, because I have imported it, obviously I can, let's say, create an object of emp, right? So let's say in the main method over here, I try to create an object of emp. So let's say I write emp obj equal to new emp. Later on I write obj dot fun. So this will not work. So I was allowed to import the class because the class was defined public, but I cannot use the fun method because it is default type.
How about the variables? Suppose the class employee had a variable called name without
exactly same logic as
Same.
function.
So
No.
function and variables behave the same way as far as accessible methods.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
So if I change this public class to normal without anything, so basically that means default class. So then the error will be coming at this line itself. It will not wait to go till this obj1. It will give you error at this line itself that you cannot import it. But if you keep the class as public, then it will allow you to import it over here. It is allowed, but it will ultimately run into error at this line. Now, if you define this as public too, then this line will also work. So again, default modifiers or default access modifier are basically package private. So as long as you are inside the package, it's okay. Once you move out of the package, it will not be allowed. So that is regarding default access modifier. Private is the most restricted one. So basically, once you define something as private, it is only accessible inside that class. And that's it. I mean, even in the package, outside the package, no need to worry about all of that. Just as long as you're inside the class, its existence is present. Once you move out of the class, no one can access it. Right? So basically, any private member can be accessed by another member of the class inside the class itself. You cannot even see that outside the class. So that is private. And protected is something very interesting, and that is protected means it is accessible within the package, no problem. Once you move out of the package, I have a restriction, and that restriction says that you can access it. I will allow you to access it, but not freely like public. But I will not also restrict you like default. So default does not allow you to access anything outside the package. Public allows you to completely access it anywhere. Protected is somewhere in between, and protected says that, okay, as long as you are inside the package, I am okay with it. I will allow you to access just like default allows. Once you move out of the package, I have a condition that as long as you belong to a subclass, I will allow you to access me. So let us take a small example for that. Let us take if I have a class A, and inside this I have a protected void fun. Fine. Let us say this is package P1. Okay, so inside this package P1, I'm not giving any example inside this package P1 because inside this package P1, you can access it anywhere. Okay, within another class, within the same class, within a subclass, anywhere, because it is inside the package. Once you move out of the package, then things get a little bit interesting. What is this A dot star? That anything which is there inside the A class, oh sorry, not A. Again, I can write P1 dot A dot star, but P1 dot A also works. No, don't worry. So P1 dot A dot star means anything present inside A will be imported. But I'm writing this one. Okay. After that, what we will do? Let us say we have a class over here. And let's say inside this class we have a, let's say I'm directly accessed, or let's say we define a method. Fine. And over here, let's say, okay, what I write over here, I will come back a little later. I'm writing the class C over here. Please understand it's in the same package. Is there anything wrong in this code, by the way, till now, except filling up this part? Okay. Other than filling up the parts, is there anything wrong in this code? Suppose there is nothing written inside the classes, inside the function definition. So still it will not give any error, right? But so till now, will this code compile?
Yes, sir, it will compile.
Compile, right? Yeah. So let us say it like this. Let me give a hint that don't look at it from the point of view of week 7 or week 8. That's the hint. So these kind of questions might come, which might deal with the concept.
Can you repeat the question?
Question is, will this code compile? That's it.
So, sir,
Package.
for
Go ahead.
package P2, the class B should be public.
Class B should be public.
I don't think so, sir.
Why? I mean, why it should be public? See, speak out your reason. It's important because
Then only we can import it in the.
import always happens on the person who, on the class which you are importing, right? So since I'm importing A, class A, then that means the access modifier of A, the access allowance of A should be public.
No, but when you extend, you are not expected to restrict the access, because somewhere else you might probably be casting it as class A outside this package 3. Suppose.
So that happens for function. When you are overriding a function, that happens. You are correct in that. But for classes, that's not a problem because.
Okay, yeah, you got a point, because since class B is within package 2, you cannot even access from outside. So within this package, anyway, it does. That's also, it's okay. You're right. Not for the outer shell. Inside.
But that is very important concept. And by the way, we will do that in cloning. When you have a method which you are overriding later on, then restricting the allowance of that access modifier of that, or increasing or decreasing the strictness of that, that is a very important concept, and we will discuss that hopefully. So many things to discuss. When we will have time, I don't know. Anyways.
Okay.
Sir, is it sir class C public class? It should be.
It should compile.
It should compile, right?
Yes.
Does it throw an error? Let me catch it.
Okay, so the thing is, again, this is the primary difference between Java and Python. Python can start from anywhere, execution. Java's execution only starts from the main method, and the main method should always be there inside a public class. Otherwise, the entry point would not be. Okay,
you mean class C you have put now.
Should be public. So that's why I gave the hint. Do not look at it from the point of view of week 7.
And strict.
Yeah.
Put something somewhere, right?
Yeah. So I told already that don't look at it from.
I was only looking at A and B. That's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously.
If public is there, it can be compiled now, sir.
Yeah, public has to be there. Otherwise, what happened? I told in the session, I think, I don't know.
Yeah, default private.
It should be public and static, right?
Static. The main method is static. Class C should be public. The primary reason for that is your Java file will be named on the basis of the public class. So if you do not make it public, there would be no .java file itself, and if there is no .java file, what will you execute?
That's okay.
So yeah. So again, any program in Java must have a public. Which has main method, right? A program which has a main method. There can be library files, right? Library files mean what? Basically, you define a package. Inside that package, you define thousands of classes, or basically class and functions.
In a way, we are restricting there should be only one public static main in any of the classes.
Yeah, exactly. And there should be only one public class in any program, one level up. So any one public class. I will not allow more than one public class in a program. So let me just write that, because only one public class is allowed in a program, or practically speaking, in a dot
In a package also.
Java file. Yeah. Now the reason for that is your .java file will be named upon that public class. So whatever is the name of that public class, your Java file's name will be that. So if you do not have a public class, and by the way, only one public class, and must, I mean, it's not both minimum and maximum criteria. So it should, at least one public class should be there, and there should only be one, at most one public class should be there. So basically there should always be one public class in a program in Java, because the .java file will be named upon that public class. Okay, so that's what your code's name will be converted into. Okay. And if you have a main method, then the main method must compulsorily be present inside that public class, right? Otherwise your entry point to the Java code will not be started, or would not be able to find by the compiler. Compiler wouldn't be able to find the entry point to the code. If you place your main method in any other class, your code will not execute. So your main method should always be present inside the public class, and there should only be one public class inside any .java file.
I can have multiple main in separate files.
Exactly. Actually, you can have multiple main inside the same file as well, but none of them will be executed if they are not public class.
Yeah.
Getting the point. So if I make 7 classes in a program, none of them are public, and then I add public static void main string args exactly following the format of main method inside all the 7 classes, none of them will be executed.
Oh, that's okay. That is okay.
Yeah. So that's the point. So yeah, you have to have a public class, and you should put your main method inside it. Okay, so therefore in this code,
so that allows us to have a multiple entry into the package.
it would have
context, right?
Say
I have a program code A, code B, code C. Each one has got a main depending on the context in which I want to do. I could initiate that as the
entry point.
Correct?
But yeah, that would have happened if Java did not. If Java would have allowed that, but Java doesn't allow that. That's the point. Java Java only allows you to have one main method. I mean, you can have multiple main methods, but the problem is Java will execute the one
method lying in different files called as a different public classes.
Different files means what? When you go inside different file, that means you are going into a different public class.
No, in the same package. Say, suppose I'm building a data set.
Okay.
I want to testing time. I want to run it as a small 10 users.
Okay.
For a demonstration to you people in the Viva, I want to keep it say 100. So I may have two different Java files, one creating with the 10, another one creating 100. It depends on where I enter the package.
Yeah, that is fine. I mean, as long as you are in a separate program and your main method is inside a public class, it's fine.
So for a package, there can be a multiple entry, but it has to be kept in a separate files.
Exactly. And the name should be different. You cannot have the same named class inside one package.
I know, that is okay. That class.
Yeah.
In the package, you got to have the unique names. Within the name, I will have. So maybe I will start one with a test and another one is a demo, another production.
Exactly. That's normal, Actually, again, I want to go into a discussion, but I cannot do that as of now, because those who have done C++ or some other languages, there is the concept called namespace, and basically when you do integration of multiple programmers in industry.
I think that we should go ahead with the questions.
Yeah, so that is something different. But yeah, so I'm trying to just say that you can make this complex structure of programs depending upon accessibility, as long as you know how far the access modifiers allow you to work. But anyways, coming back, as we said, so if this is the structure, now public class C is there, right? And now if I write something like this over here, since the class is sorry, the class A is imported now, I can write over here a obj equal to new A, right? And let us say if I write obj dot fun. So that is one thing. I can write over here the same thing, a obj equal to new A, and I call obj dot fun, right? That is another thing. I can also write over here, let's say b obj obj1 equal to new b obj1 dot fun, then I can also write this dot fun, right?
But your reference in class C will be a error, right?
That error, not error, I have not yet formed the question. So let me think about all the permutations that I can make out of this. Then we will go into the question asking part, which is wrong, which is correct. So other than this, using object of subclass, using object of the superclass. Okay. Okay, here also I can write this b obj2 equal to new b. Yeah. Fine. So let me just put some line numbers so that line 1, now tell me which ones are okay, which ones are not. Okay, the logic of protected is that I will allow you to access protected methods when you are going outside the package. You are allowed to access protected method only inside the subclasses. But if that is the statement regarding access rules of protected, it is not saying anything regarding, okay, you are allowed to access it outside the subclasses, but then we are trying to access it using objects also. First of all, okay, another thing is directly calling the fun, right? Fine. By the way, this L4, not L4, let me change the So by the way, is this L6 okay? Can I write it like that?
Should you not write super.fun?
Maybe you could write that. Yes.
Okay. Super.fun. That is another combination. Great. Thanks for adding that. Super.fun. Arey yaar. Okay. So 7 questions. Yeah, coming back to the previous question. So L6 super.fun, obviously this means it's something separate since I've written that as L7. So that answers your question. But is L6 wrong?
No, sir.
L6 is not wrong. So why L6 is not wrong? Because it's inheritance. Simple. We get messed up in so much complex thing that we forget the simple previously learned concept. It's simple inheritance. Class B is extending class A. So obviously fun method will be inherited. That's it. So if you are getting an inherited method inside a class, you can directly call that inherited method. As long as you have not overridden it, you will be calling the parent type version which you inherit. If you override it, then you basically call the overridden method which you have modified it in the, which you have ultimately changed it. Right. So line 6 is perfectly correct line syntactically. No problem with that. Super.fun is something different. Super.fun, you are trying to call the particularly superclass method version. So although in this case super line 6 and line 7 are basically same because we have not done overriding of the fun method. But if you would have done overriding, so line 6 would have called the fun method corresponding to the overridden version inside class B. But super.fun will explicitly call the parent's version. So that would have been different. Line 6 and line 7 would have been different. Although both are syntactically correct, but both of them would have called separate versions in case you have done overriding. But since in this code, there is no overriding of the fun method, therefore, basically they are same. Line 6 and line 7 will call the same fun method, which is the parent class's version. But both are syntactically fine. So this line 6 is essentially what? When I'm not writing anything, that means what? This dot fun, right? Isn't it? Because when you are not writing anything, that means inside any classes member function. So that means it is this pointer is basically calling that. So line 3, line 6 are basically same. And line 7 is also same because overriding is not done. So all 3 lines work perfectly fine and they are basically the same statement in disguise. So line 3, 6, 7 are clear. Why? Because simple inheritance. The problem is with these ones. Now, what do you think about all this?
L1 and L2 is also fine, sir.
L1
And L2?
L1 and L2 are okay.
Yes, sir.
So L1 may not be okay because you're trying to call a protected method.
No, B is extending it. That's all.
You can call it from B.
So this is the tricky part regarding protected. Protected says outside the package, if you are trying to access me within the scope of a subclass. What do I mean by within the scope of a subclass? Within the scope of a subclass means within the body of a subclass. So if I am trying to access, let's say the function of class A, which is protected inside a subclass in another package, then as long as I am inside the body of that subclass, it's okay to access that. But once I move out of the body of that subclass, I cannot access it. So leaving line 1 and 2 as of now, coming back to our class C, obviously class C is not a subclass of class A, and therefore line number 4 and line number 5, let us worry about them at first. So what about line 4? Line 4 is obviously not accessible because first of all, there is no inheritance of class A's version of fun inside class C because C is not a subclass of A. Also, class A has a protected fun method which you cannot access outside the subclass. Inside, and I mean, as soon as you move out of the package, you must be inside the subclass in order to access the fun method. Right? Please understand this. You can only access a protected method outside the package within the scope as long as you are within the scope of a subclass. Once you are outside the package and you are not inside the scope of a subclass, you cannot access the protected method. So since I am inside the main method, which is not inside the scope of a subclass of A, therefore the line 4 is wrong. Is line 5 wrong?
Yes,
Line 5 is also wrong.
unless class B has a pass-through fun declared.
Yeah, that is not there as of now. So,
Then it is.
so both line 4 and line 5 won't work. Sorry. So what about line 1 and 2 now? Based upon this understanding, line 1 and 2, what should happen?
Both should work, sir.
Both should work.
Yes, sir.
So
Line 1, line 2 error, sir.
why?
Because you're accessing it as an object, not as an inherited class. You can access fun from A because B extends A, but you cannot access it as an object of A.
Nice. So that is, yeah, someone wants to say something on that?
I don't see what's the argument?
The thing is, we are accessing fun method using object.
Yeah, which is an instance of
In this case, superclass. In this case, subclass.
yeah, both do have that function.
But it is a protected function. And I said that protected functions are accessible only inside.
Yeah, I'm within B. I'm within B, which is an extension of A, so I'm allowed.
So both of them should be working, right? L1 and L2. I mean, that's what the idea is, according to the definition.
If this function can work,
Ah.
obviously when I instantiate with a specific object, it should work.
So basically, when I'm directly calling it like this, so our friend's argument is when we are calling it like this, it will work because it's about inheritance and all. But when we are calling it using object, then it should not work because according to the protected methods criteria, you can it will work. Okay. So that's another. So one argument is L1, L2 both shall not work because of using it via object. Another argument is L1 and 2 both should work because it is whatever, whether it is using object or without object doesn't matter. As long as I am inside the scope of the subclass outside the package, it should work. So these are the two.
So this third argument is also there, sir.
Okay. Go ahead.
That is basically L1 will not work.
Okay,
but L2 will work.
Okay, nice. So again, chalo. Democracy, everyone has argument. Chalo, tell what is the logic?
Logic, sir?
I mean, you have to give me the logic, right? So,
yeah. I'll tell you, sir. So basically, what you've done is you've created an object of class A. Okay. But A has the value, the func over there, which is protected. The protected functions can only be called from a derived class.
Yeah.
Or from the same class. Okay, the class where it is this one. So that is my argument why L1 will not work. L2 will not work because L2 will work. L2 will work because B is derived from A, right? So that func is definitely available in B due to protected inheritance. Okay.
Yeah.
So L2 will work.
So
okay. L3
basic.
will work. L3, L6, L7 all will work.
Yeah, that is the we discussed anyway earlier.
Yes, sir.
And L4, 5, none of them will work because we are out of the scope of subclass. So
So if L4 does not work, then even L1 will not work because they look almost identical, unless I'm missing something.
But then if that is the logic, then we are completely not arguing about the scope, because L4 is outside the scope of a subclass, but L1 is inside the scope of a subclass, which is basically the argument of protected inheritance. Right?
Let us, I think, I don't know, sir. I'm willing for change. Thanks a lot.
So, okay,
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so now it's getting interesting. Chalo, so as of now, since the last argument has changed, so we are still sticking to the previous two argument, which is basically since L1 and L2 are within the scope of a subclass, therefore protected as the definition of protected says that as long as you are inside the subclass, I will allow you to access me. Based upon that, L1 and L2 are accessible. And other argument is that since I'm using objects to access L1 and L fun method, therefore that is not allowed. I can directly access fun, but I am not allowed to access it using object inside the subclass. That is the second argument.
Can I ask a question on what is the difference between L1 and L3?
L1 is using an object of A type you are calling fun method. L3 is
What is
L3 is basically this dot fun. So basically this is what? B class is fun.
Object, right? This is also an object, right?
But this is an object of B class, and this is an object of A class. That's the difference.
Sir, I think now I got it, sir. L1 will fail, L2 will work.
Okay, nice. So the same previous third argument, logic.
Yes, L1 will fail, L2 will work. Because
why?
This dot func will work. L3 is working. So is obj.func. That will work. Fun. So L3, L2 will work. L1 will fail.
Yeah. So then basically there is no difference between L2 and L3 or L6 or L7, whatever. And not L7, L6.
No. L6 and L7 are different, sir. They are completely by inheritance. You have not overridden the function.
Actually, L6 and L2 and L3, all these three things, they are not, as long as I'm not overriding or doing something, they are, or even if I do override it, right? Even if I do override it, then L3, 2, 3, and 6, okay, they are basically the same thing. Why?
Yeah.
Right? 2, 3, 6. 7 is different. 7 is
inheritance.
7 is inheritance.
Yeah. 2, 3, 6 will work, sir. L1 will fail. L7 will pass. Yeah.
Yeah. So why L1 will fail? The point is, so then again we have to discuss. Okay, anyway, so let us discuss L1 first. Let me just go to the code before over here. Let me just, what is that? Where did I write that one? Yeah, this one, I think. Okay, yeah, this one, fine. So what was where was the display class? This one. So this is this. So we have this 4 method, display 1, 2. So we will only focus on display 4 because that is the protected one. So this was a common code written for discussing all the package access concept. So I will discuss on this display 4 only because this is protected one. So let us see where is it accessible and where it isn't. So this is inside the same package. So obviously display 4 is accessible anywhere, inside main, outside main, wherever. So you access it, no problem. We will see the access of display 4. Okay. Now this is where is that code? Yeah. So this is outside the package. As you can see, this is package Java 4. Let me make it a little bigger. This is your package Java 4, and I'm importing Java 5, in which my original class was there. Right. So here I have this another subclass, extends access modifier demo. So this is the subclass, right? Normal. And I have this fun method. Inside this, I am basically first of all using this pointer to call all the functions. So you see this dot display we are calling. This is perfectly working, no problem. Right? Display 4 was the one which we are basically looking at because that was the protected one. Right? But then we have defined this superclass type object O and a subclass type object obj2. Right? And then let us see what happens for line 4. First, I'm accessing it using the superclass object, and then I'm accessing it using the subclass object. What's important to note over here is we are still inside the subclass scope. No problem with that. Like here we were inside the subclass scope. Here also I'm inside the subclass scope only, right? Because this is just another function, fun2, but it is basically the same scope inside the subclass. But in this case, line number 1, it's giving you error. And in this case, line number 2, it's working. Now, why is it happening? Why is it so? Because before that, let us go to the other class as well, where it's not a subclass. So you see it is directly not working. Neither obj.display4 is working nor obj2.display4 is working. Obj.display4 is super type object. Obj2 is subtype object, subclass object. So the subclass which we have defined over here, another subclass, right? This another subclass. So you see another subclass obj2, and that is also giving you error. And the parent class object obj, that is also giving you error, because here the scope is out of the subclass. Because there is no question, as soon as I move out of the subclass and I am inside another package, there is no question of object type, ye wo inheritance, kuch nahi, it will not work. Just directly write, it will not work, right? So both of them are not working. But once I move inside the subclass scope, there is still one condition, and that condition is you should, although you are inside the subclass, you can only access protected method using object of the subclass, not by using object of superclass. Okay, you cannot access the superclass version by calling the by basically using object of superclass, although you are present inside the scope of the subclass. You can access it using any subclass object. You can define a new subclass object, like over here we have defined a new subclass object obj2, and with that I am accessing display 4. Fine. You may not define a new subclass object, directly call that using this pointer or this object. That is also fine. This is also working, no problem. But the type calling the display 4 or the protected method in this case should always be subclass type in which you are basically working, right? That should be the type of the one who is calling display 4. That is what display and subclass type means. What? Either you define an object of that subclass or you use this pointer. So this pointer is also the subclass type, right? Because that is inside the subclass. So this will basically point to one of the instance of the subclass itself. So therefore, this line is very important to understand. Although I am inside the scope of the subclass, but if I am accessing the protected method using using the parent class object, it will not work. It will not allow. Okay. Now you might ask that why the reason is so. Why? What is the?
I will add a little bit.
Yeah.
If my subclass is casted as a superclass, the moment I call that as a superclass, I cannot access it.
Let us say you want something like this.
Yes. If I make it as the superclass, which is
What was the name? What was the name? Just to say the access modifier.
accessible modifier dem. What? Yeah. Yes. Now it will fail.
Obvious.
Okay. Basically, that doesn't have a signature to probably hook onto. Oh, fine. Get it. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. That's a good point.
So that's why I don't know whether I discussed it in the session or not, but I wrote the code to discuss it. I forgot maybe, or I couldn't get time. But this is a very this is a very important point with respect to protected access, and questions might come from this part, that although you are inside the subclass scope, as long as you are not accessing it using an object of subclass type. Object of subclass type means either this pointer or an object of subclass which you define explicitly. So unless and until you are doing that, although you are inside the subclass, you are not able to access the protected method using a super type object. But if you are outside the scope of subclass, tab to question hi nahi banta, then there is no doubt about it. Then you use subclass object, you use superclass object, you use whatever thing you have, you cannot access it once you move out of the scope. But when you are inside the scope of the subclass, then also there is an added condition, and that condition is you can only call it using subclass reference. Subclass reference, either this or another subclass object. So please keep that thing in mind. Now, someone might ask, okay, what is the meaning of complexifying so much about why these much rules and why these things? It's not I cannot discuss the reason with an example in this session because it's a revision session. Hopefully in the next session, I will discuss it because this has a very practical implication, and that is basically, so in genetics, if some of you are aware of, we have these recessive genes, right? And therefore many diseases gets, let's say, propagated if you have these recessive genes which get combined from both the parents in the child. So you might want sometimes to stop the inherited characteristics at some point, but at least use that characteristic within that generation. If you have a need like that in some real object-oriented scenario, that's where you basically use protected. So I will give an example in the next session, and you will feel that what is the need of making these things so much complex. By the way, so I don't know whether I should speak it out like that, but since it came to my mind, I will just say, so sorry if someone is offended about it. I don't know, but scientifically speaking, the marriage ceremonies in Hindu religion and the Gotra-based selection of bride and groom is based upon primarily this recessive genetic, so that we can eliminate or at least can, let's say, mitigate to whatever extent we can for this recessive genetic disorder that might come in the next generation. So that is a scientific approach to that. Anyways, so similar kind of thing can be reflected in object-oriented programming. When we need a specific behavior to be stopped at a certain level of inheritance, and maybe use that in that level and do not allow it to propagate further. And that is the reason we only set subclass type object to access that particular inherited behavior, but do not allow the same behavior to be accessed by superclass or any other object within that scope itself. So that is the reason. Yeah, so I hope that public protected and private, public default and private are quite easy in terms of the protected one. Protected one is a little bit complex, and that's why I discussed. Hopefully we'll be able to answer any kind of access modifier question from now on. So is there any doubt, by the way, regarding any part of the discussion, or let's say regarding public, private and default, the other ones?
Sir,
I just got
little counterintuitive because since B is a subclass, so we are in fact allowing B's object to access the A's protected method, but we are not allowing A's object itself.
Once you have inherited it, it's no longer A's protected method. We are allowing, whenever we are calling obj.fun, it is basically B's method, because that has inherited inside B. Whenever I'm calling, sorry, not obj, obj1.fun, obj1, this is not allowed, by the way. So let us cross that out. So whenever I'm writing this obj1.fun or this.fun, so that basically means I'm trying to access the B's version. Okay, it's not about, I mean, B's version means do not think in terms of I have not overridden it, so why it is B's version. I'm not talking about that. The idea is once you have inherited it, it's yours. That's it. Right?
Okay.
So once you inherit something from your parents, it's yours, right? You cannot, your parents cannot say later on that, okay, this is inherited, I have given to you, but now give it back to me. It's not, doesn't work like that. So yeah. Okay, so as we have discussed, this is, I think this is much more simpler example than the ones we have done. So line 1, line 2 generate compilation error, which we already saw. Okay, this is assertion. Simple if-else statement. I'm not discussing this. Check which one is failing, which one is the one which is failing. That, I mean, just so it is asking that there are 3 or 4, I don't know, 4 assert statements are given. Which one will fail? So just check the condition, you will get your answer. So assertion, the importance of assertion becomes very relevant when you basically write some program and not these simple programs. You are making an application, then you will feel the need for assertion. So you write this print statement here and there in order to check where there is some error happening, to whether this print is getting executed. Till this line, there is no error, that means. In order to see these kind of stuffs, you do this print, or let's say print the variable to see what is the current value in order to debug a code. So you can use assertion when you are working with stuff like that. So that's very essential. Other than that, in terms of question, assertion has nothing new. This is what, this is, I think, normal week 5, week 6 concept. Week 5, week 6 concept. Week 6. See, there are so many questions from collections. So please be comfortable with collections, okay? Now stream. Stream is week 8. I have not yet discussed week 8. This type eraser, I think. So as you can see over here, right? How does marks and sample look after type eraser? So as you can see over here, since over here, what is the extends after extend number is there, right? So the bounding will be t will be converted to number, right? So as you can see in the answer, t is converted to number. Over here, t has no binding is given to t, so it will be converted to object. And again here it will be converted to number. So as you can see here, object and here number. Simple thing.
This is a quiz, isn't it?
It's quiz, previous year quiz.
So,
I'm just
okay. Will it be easier now? Like this?
Sorry, what?
Will the questions are going to be easier like this?
That I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so this is, I think, cloning. Again, I will discuss cloning now and then come back over here. Week 7, there is very few question. All is okay. So this is week 7. Okay, so this is what salary processor, salary processor public static void throws exception. Okay. Then public static void process salaries throws exception. Okay. Okay. Last test. Process salaries. So we are basically going over here, process salaries. Over here you are trying and calls a cal salary with this values. Okay. If bonus is less than 0, bonus is not less than 0. So total salary will be BS plus bonus, which is summation of these two values will be printed, right? And after that, the program will return over here in this line, which is this one. Now it will go again over here. Bonus is less than 0, definitely this is true, so new exception will be thrown. Once the exception is thrown, what will happen? Since no try catch block is given over here, the context will come to this point over here, right? So in this exception, we will basically catch the exception E, and then I will print caught in process salaries, right? And then I'm rethrowing E over here, right? So once this is thrown again, right? So I will come back to the one where this basically this context returns back to the point where it was called, so which is basically over here, right? And then I will print caught in May. So first of all, where is that success one? Yeah, total salary 50,000, 60,000 will be printed, followed by caught in process salaries, followed by caught in main. Anyone has doubt in this? I kind of slowly went through step by step. Same kind of concept, nothing different. Okay, chalo. So that's it. Fine. So now we will come to week 8 discussion. So first is your cloning, and then we have functional interfaces, and then we have thirdly we have streams. Okay, so this week 8 is a really heavy week. I think in the last session week 8 theory was discussed. So let me just discuss the programming part. I will directly come to the programming discussion of week 8. So what is this clonable? First of all, what is this clonable interface? As you can see, so I'm expecting a little bit of understanding because one week 8 session is discussed already, right? So at least the theory part. So what is this clonable interface doing? So as you can see, I am here overriding the clone method over here. So does this clone method overriding has anything to do with this clonable interface or not? So is this clonable interface having the clone method which I am overriding?
No, sir.
Okay, so then
No, sir,
when
it's a marker.
okay, it's a marker interface. So what is a marker interface? An interface which does not have any method, but basically we have to write this line of implements clonable so as to make the Java compiler know that the class employee, the objects of class employee most probably will use the clone method to do cloning. So this is a message given to the Java compiler. Now, why is this message given is beyond the scope of discussion, and therefore we will not do that in this session. But yeah, for let us say for some internal working of Java, we have to give this message to the JVMs, which basically the way to give that message is by writing these implements clonable. So clonable interface does not have any method, but in order to do cloning, I have to basically override the clone method, and that clone method comes from object class. Okay, so yeah, so that clone method comes from object class. So let me just go over here and discuss some few things over here. So first of all, if I have an employee objects, let's say, Okay, and over here I add the name, let's say Amit. And over here I make another employee, obj2 equal to obj, right? And let us say the data members are all public data members. So I write obj2 dot name equal to Rahul, right? And then I print obj dot name So as you can understand over here, both of the answers will be changed to Rahul. Why? Because we are basically pointing to the same memory location, so they will point to the same name. So the answer will be Rahul and Rahul. Now I want to do copy, but let us say in this example it doesn't make quite sense because I have only data member, only one data member over here, which is name. But let us say we also had a few other data members over here. Let us say salary, right? Maybe 25K. So in this case, maybe I just want to change the name, and that's why sorry, in this case, let us say, why did I do the copy? I want to do the copy because I want to have, because most of the data member fields I want to keep it same, only the name I want to change. Suppose these are two colleagues who have joined this company at a same scale and everything else is same. So any details related to their position, let's say the third, there can be another data member, which is their designation. So that the designation, salary, everything will be same. Let us say another data member can be their joining date. Maybe their joining date is also same. So if everything is same, only the name is different, then I don't want to initialize each variable for obj2. So rather than that, I just create this obj2, copy the value of obj1 into obj2, right? I mean, not obj1, the obj object into obj2, so that most of the data members still remain same. I just want to change one field and I will change that field and it should work. So that's my motivation. That's why I want to do it. I just want to copy so that most of the field gets, all of the field gets copied up and they get automatically initialized to the same value because I want it like that. And then I will just change the name because that's the only field that should be different. Right? So in that case, this is how I want the thing to work, but it will not work because both the thing will get changed to Rahul. Why? Because the memory location is same, and this is what we call shallow copy. If I want to do it in the other way, so what can we do? We can have this employee obj2 equal to, I can use a new object, new keyword to create a completely new memory location, right? Employee. And over here, I can pass the, since I want to do it using Amit's value. So what I can do is I can write something like obj dot, let us say we have the getter, or since the methods are anyway public, data members are anyway public, let's say obj dot name. Oh no, not obj dot name. The name is Rahul. But other than that, everything will be obj dot salary, obj dot designation, in case there is something called designation, suppose. So I can do a thing like this. That is also fine, as long as I have the constructor properly made. So I can do something like this. Now here everything works fine, right? So the thing that I wanted is handled over here. So basically I'm creating a new memory location. So this is what we call deep copy. Now the problem is over here that if I have thousands of fields in any object, then I have to individually write this obj dot in case, even if I'm using it using get, I mean I'm getting the value using getter and setter method. So then also I have to call so many getter methods one by one manually in order to copy the values of the object into obj2. So this is a difficult task in case of real world scenario where for an object will have, let's say, hundreds of fields. So rather than that, so this works fine, but then the problem is it's very cumbersome because you have to write a lot of code if you have so many data members over here. So therefore, in order to ease this thing and still have the facility, the concept of cloning came. So what I am ideally trying to do using a cloning is I have the employee obj2 and then I will write, right? Obj dot clone. That's it. So this is ideally something that I want to achieve. So once I write the obj.clone, later on maybe I just want to change the obj2 dot name to be Rahul. But this will not affect, like in the previous case it was affecting and both were becoming Rahul. This will not affect the obj object itself. That's what I want to achieve. Something like this. Right? So this is cloning. And how can I do that? So basically cloning will do deep copy. I mean, at least it will look like it is doing deep copy, right? But as just by writing the clone keyword, I will be able to get away with it without individually specifying each data member. Okay, so in order to achieve this, we have to follow some rules, right? So what are the rules? So first of all, the clone method. So where is this clone method coming from? The clone method is a method of the object class. So basically, therefore, it will be inherited in all classes, whatever class you define in Java, it will have a clone method, right? Okay, but the problem is the object class, and therefore you can call this clone method using your classes object. So in this case, employee classes object. But there is a problem with that, and the problem is the clone method definition inside the object class is made protected. Okay, so if I come in the code, so as you can see, so this is the object class, public class object, and inside this I have the clone method, which is protected. Native is something we are not discussing as of now. So just think this protected object door throws clone not supported exception. So this is the prototype of the clone method, the signature of the clone method. So clone method is present inside the object class, but whenever a class has to work with cloning, I have to implement the clonable interface on top of that class. So coming back to our original code, class date implements clonable, right? Right over here also class employee implements clonable. So what is this date? I will come back a little later, but basically all the classes where I have to, where I need the clone method to be used, I have to implement clonable interface. The reason we already discussed. But clonable interface does not have the clone method. Object class has the clone method. Okay. Now looking back at the clone method of object class, as we can see that the clone method over here is protected and is returning an object type. Okay. Now, if it is protected, what happens? It will, as we have seen in our previous discussion, so if it is protected, I can only access it inside any subclass. Now, obviously, that is okay because all classes are subclasses of object class. So I can access it inside the subclass. But do you remember what's the trouble? I can only access it inside the subclass. So in that case, if I want to use the clone method, I can only access it over here. I mean, with respect to the date class, or if I come back to the employee class, forget about all these lines of code. Okay, forget about all these lines of code. Just assume that Yeah, so just assume this much. Okay, I have to return. If I have the clone method over here, if I want to access it, so I mean employee object dot clone I want to do. Obviously, I won't do that over here, right? I won't do that inside the employee class. I need the clone method so that I can clone it outside inside the main method, right? So over here I would use cloning. So as I've done over here, e5 dot clone, right? So that's what I want to do. So I want to use the clone method inside the main method. But since the clone method of object class is made protected, you can understand I can only use the clone corresponding to employee class inside the employee class because it is protected, right? So then all I want is I want to access the method, clone method of employee class outside the employee class, but that cannot be done because clone is protected type. So how to change that? So this is where we come to the discussion. I think on similar lines we started a discussion while doing the protected question. So when you want something like this, when you want to access a specific method which is already restricted according to access modifier, so what you can do is, since it is a subclass of object class, any class is a subclass of object class, so I will override the clone method. Okay, so how will I override the clone method? The signature should remain same, but there are two things that you can change while overriding. Okay, there are two things that you can change while overriding. So let me go over here. The first thing that you can do is you can relax the access modifier. But the second thing is regarding the any exception that it is throwing. In case it is not throwing any exception, well and good. But in case it is throwing any exception, this is the second thing in the function signature that you can change. And that you can change how? By mentioning relax the access modifier as compared to the parent class version. In this case, regarding the type of exception, after throws keyword, you can mention any subtype of the exception. Okay, so these are the two things that you can change in the signature of any overriding overridden function. Okay, so why?
How about the return type? Can I restrict or should I? Is it allowed or not? Originally, it was an object.
So return type you cannot change. Return type has to be same. Return type and parameters.
Are you saying that if I write a clone in say employee, I should return only an object? I cannot return an employee.
In that case, see, let me just. So as you can see over here, it is object obviously.
Correct.
But the point is you can typecast it later on when you are working with it.
But is it not safe to typecast here? Because I'm basically copying an employee.
I understand that, but I think C++ allows that, but in Java you cannot change the type. As far as I
the
understand.
existing code did. You
it is working, sir.
The code which you commented, The word code which you have commented just below, it's actually creating an employee. So, I mean, I've been used to, so I'm thinking whether it was theoretically anything. Yeah. Basically, I'm typecasting here and then returning it.
Let me just check.
So the idea is, everybody knows object comes as an object.
No, see, even though I am writing over here object, it will work. Because
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So basically now we are modifying the return type from the overriding.
So let me just check one thing.
Scope wise, I'm talking about the scope.
Scope wise, there is no problem. But let me just check whether the, it is anyway, compilation, there is no problem.
No, it does work. I mean, I got
I think
so lines running like this. So the idea was that I don't have to keep on typecasting at the recipient end. So basically, if I'm cloning employee, I know it is an employee, so I will send it as an employee.
See,
if it is a manager, it goes as a manager.
That though you will, even if you do not do it, it will get into trouble. So if I mean, although I have done the cloning over here, let me just check.
No, that you got it. Here you got a typecast.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So you will.
It's done globally, no?
Yeah.
Say I'm cloning it in 20 places outside. I will be expecting the same class, so I don't have to typecast there.
Yeah, that is fine. That is not something. I mean, I am just worried about. Okay, anyways, it's fine. So it will provoke no problem. Scope-wise, there is no problem. What I had doubt about is whether the signature. I mean, in function overriding, whether Java allows the signature.
Yes, it does. That is exactly the point. When we are writing the 2 points, the third point is the return type can be a subtype of it.
Subtype also, exactly. Yes. That also is fine. Yeah. So let us add
the modifier has to keep expanding. The type can be shrinking. That is the idea.
Yeah. Both for exception as well as the return type.
Yes.
So return type.
Return types, including the throwing, can be of a subtype.
Can also be a subtype of the original definition.
Correct. See, eventually the signature somewhere has to match. So that's what these are the basic rules.
Yeah. Signature wise, so there is no problem. There is no problem regarding that. But anyway, so there are some rules you see that even in overloading, the signature will match, but there are a lot of things not allowed, like in type eraser, it's not allowed. Like in case of if you have in a subclass you do overloading, try to do overloading, it's not allowed. So yeah, stuff like that is not allowed. But yeah, I was just checking. According to signature, it is perfectly fine. But whether it's allowing to do the overriding in that case, that's what I was worried about. But yeah, it's not showing any error, as so I think it's fine anyway. Logically, it should work. And that's fine. Yeah, so I think what I was discussing is, so since I want the clone method for employee to be accessible outside the employee class itself, basically I want to write something like this, right? Here I want to inside the main, I want to write e.clone. So in order to do that, I have to make it public, right? Because unless and until I make it public, I won't be able to access it outside the employee class. And since we know the access modifier can be relaxed, so since the original definition was protected, here I can relax it to public, because public is less stricter than protected, so I can do that. So once I make it public, therefore it will work. I mean, I can use this outside the class as well. Then as we just now saw that we can convert this to employee type, so no problem. Employee, clone, and throws clone not supported exception. We have not experimented with anything over here, but basically you can write any subtype of clone not supported exception as well. So throws clone not supported exception. So once you have written this, after that the cloning will start. But I'm not discussing these lines as of now. Let us see the normal clone definition for date class, and I will come to the whole code a little later. But normally how you will do cloning is like this. Implements clonable interface. So that's the first thing you will do. Secondly, you will write this thing, public, exactly this line of code you will write, and that's it. In any function, any class, wherever you want to do cloning, this is how you work with it, right? And this object can be changed to date, as we saw just now. There is no problem with it. And then clone, throws, clone not supported exception, and then you basically return the super.clone. Now, why super dot? Just a second. So, why super dot clone? Because ideally we do not know how to do cloning. Okay, that is something very, as you see that there is memory and all those things involved, because cloning means we ideally want to do deep copy kind of thing for all the data members. So that's only Java internals has the permission to do that automatically. So therefore we will not do anything as such. Only we will call the clone method of the super class, which is the object class. So this clone method overriding is just a trick that we are playing so as to allow us to access the clone method outside the subclass, that is inside main or in any other place. So we are basically overriding the clone method by changing its access specifier so that we can access it outside. But we are not doing anything on our own. We are internally calling the original object class's clone method itself. Okay. So therefore we are calling return super dot clone. So this will do the original task. Only this line will make sure that we are able to access this outside the subclass. So this is the code ideally you will write in case of any cloning. And this will make sure that this line, these two lines work perfectly fine. Okay, now in that example, it was using date class, but just assume it is using the object class, then these two lines will perfectly work without making a result like this. It will keep both of them separate. Okay. Only thing is we have to do the typecasting over here. Okay. But so there is a but over here, and that but is basically in case.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Huh.
Again, you have just cloned, sir. So means the example which you give in your handwritten notes. So it will not be deep copy, no?
Wait. What?
Here also object2.name is equal to Rahul. We'll change the
No.
Amit also to Rahul, no, sir?
No. That's what cloning is doing, right? Cloning is not changing. Cloning will do a deep copy kind of thing. It's not exactly deep copy, but it will look like deep copy. So let us see the code. Right? So this part.
Carl Sagan. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that is something I couldn't study physics, which I left in between while doing my engineering. So there is this leftover interest.
I will share some books.
Oh, nice. So yeah. So let us see this code. Okay, this much. Cloning employee E4 equal to employee E3 dot clone. This is the cloning I am doing. Right? Okay. What is this? Okay. Actually, what I prefer to do is go one by one, but since now this kind of revision, so I don't want to do all of that. Just mention it like that. Okay, so this is basically pure deep copy. Okay.
You could uncomment everybody because your now E1 is required.
Yeah. But anyways, so this is shallow copy example, normal shallow copy. After that, we have this deep copy, as I discussed already. After that, over here, we are doing the cloning, right? Normal cloning. Now we are setting the name as Carl Sagan as the previous example on that. I mean, in my notes, right? And let us see that whether it is changing both of them or not. right? E3 and E4 I'm printing. This is something else. So if I execute this code, just a second, let me just check the value. So ideally, both E3 and E4 should become Carl Sagan, according to what you are saying. As you can see over here, it's different, right? It's still preserved. Grigori Perelman is there in E3, and E4 Carl Sagan is there. So that is the point of cloning. I'm doing cloning so that I don't have to run into the same trouble which shallow copy gave me. But and deep copy was, so basically cloning will work like deep copy. Okay, but with the added advantage that you don't have to write all these fields one by one. In case there are 1000 fields, you don't have to do this manually. And this is just, I'm printing the hash code so as to show that both the objects are different. That is quite obvious anyway, because cloning is working with new operators internally and they are creating separate memory locations. So you can just check that out by printing the hash codes, which will be different. Okay, now the trouble comes is when you have a reference type in case in the class itself. So till this point, we were only working with name, string types or integer type parameters. But if I come to a area where I have this object type as a data member. So let me go to the code, simple code again. If I have a normal class A, okay, over here I have string type or integer type element, string val1 or integer val2. Now these things will work perfectly fine in the way I want the deep cloning to, the cloning to work. It will work exactly like that as long as the data members are like this. So all these members will be copied separately, and whether I change one value will not get reflected into the other object's value. So that's how cloning will work. We already saw that as Carl Sagan was not changing the previously allocated Grigori Perelman name, right? So it was fine. But when I have an object which is an object type, when I have a data member which is an object type, or that is basically a reference type. So what if I have a B obj as data member? Now let us say there is one class B somewhere over here, which has its own work. Right? Now in this situation, what happens is when I do cloning, when I write inside some other class, that's a class call, and then I have the main method over here. Inside the main method, I write, let's say, let us say I have the string value as XYZ, integer value as 20, and let us say the B value is an object which is basically new B, and this B has corresponding some name field is there inside this B, suppose name, string name, and this therefore this B is, let's say, okay. Suppose this is how I allocate the obj1, okay? And then I have a obj2 equal to a what was I supposed to write? Obj1 dot clone. So this is what I do normally, and assume that I have overridden the clone method like the normal way, right? So like the way we discussed, which is basically public clone, and over here I have Okay, sorry, throws I have not done it. Throws clone not supported exception, right? And then I start writing over here return super dot clone. So this is what I have done, and then over here I've written obj1 dot clone. Right. Now the problem over here is in this code. See, string, integer, all these values are primitive values, and therefore they will be copied. I mean, just Java does call by value or copy by value, right? I mean, every time the value is getting copied. So what is the value of obj? Obj is nothing but a pointer, right? Or let's say an object. So that is basically a memory location. So if I basically say obj, if I write b obj2 equal to obj somewhere, this line basically will copy not the content of obj one by one into the content of obj2. That is, it will not copy, this line will not copy the data members of obj into the data members of obj2. Rather, this will copy the value or the memory address of obj into obj2. So that means essentially this is shallow copy, right? So when I write clone method normally by like this, right? So this will do a data member by data member one by one, they will copy the values into it. So what I mean is a new area, when I write clone, I mean this clone, what it will do is a new area will be created for all the variables. So let us say this is the area for, let me do it over here. Inside memory, what will happen is the clone method will create a memory for val1. It will create a memory for val2. It will create a memory for obj. This is what clone method will do. Now what it will do, it will basically copy the content. Clone method works perfectly, right? So basically the values do not get changed. If I later on make a change in one of them, it doesn't get reflected in the other one. Why? Because I have a separate memory location corresponding to the newly created obj2, right? For each of the data members. So val1 will store the value corresponding to the, I mean, whatever is there. So XYZ will be stored, right? In this case, 20 will be stored. But this is not the memory location corresponding to obj1. Obj1 has a separate memory location over here where XYZ is stored, over here where 20 is stored, and over here where this new B object is stored. Right? So I'm just not mentioning it, just I'm writing B. So basically this B object is stored in this memory location. Now, so these two are separate memory location created for val1 and val2. So therefore, if I later on, after doing the copying, later on if I change this 20 to 30, then this 20 will not get affected because this is a separate memory location, as you can see on the screen. Right? So this can be made to 30 later on, doesn't make any difference to this one. But when I'm doing copy on the basis of value by value basis, so as you can understand here, the value I cannot write B equal to, I mean this equal to obj. I mean sorry, obj equal to this whatever object it is. You understand that? Because here I can write integer x equal to y, provided that integer y equal to 36. So in this scenario, x will obviously become 36. But later on, if I change y to 40, x will still remain 36, right? Because they are not stored in the same memory location. I'm only copying the value. So for primitive type, this type of copying are copying the value stored in it, and therefore only that value is getting copied. But in case of objects, the value itself is a memory location. There also we are copying the value in case of object as well. But the value itself is a memory location. It's not the data member by data member value that you will get when you go inside the object. But when you are directly copying the object, just like a normal primitive type variable, you are essentially copying the value which is there in the object, and that object is nothing but a pointer to a memory location. So you are essentially copying a memory location. So over here, inside the memory allocated for obj, a memory location will be added. And let us say let us say that the memory location for B was, let's say, 0xFFA. So here also 0xFFA will be added. So this is just a memory location. Now that means at the end of the day, you are pointing to the same B object, which is corresponding to this Reebok name. Okay. So although the other fields remain separately stored in separate memory, but the B object for both obj1 and obj2, even after cloning, they will point to the same memory location. So if I make a change in XYZ after this obj2 cloning is done, if I write, let's say, a dot val1, sorry, not a dot val1. If I write obj2 dot val1 equal to, let us say, hello, and later on I print, let's say, obj1 dot val1, so this will print XYZ only. It will not print hello because the memory is different. But if I write obj2 dot let's say this obj, right, this data member, obj equal to let's say new B, and corresponding to B I write Adidas. Okay, and then later on I print, let us say, obj1 dot obj. Suppose I have overridden the toString method of B class, so this will basically print Adidas. So the point is, primitive type are not getting changed after cloning. I mean, if I do some modification after cloning, it will not get changed because we are copying the value into separate memory location. But reference type, object type data members of a class, they are bound to change because we have copied their memory location while doing cloning. Okay, so how to basically solve this problem? So that's where we come with the concept of deep cloning. So this is happening only in case of reference type, because that reference variable is not getting cloned on a variable, data member by data member basis. We are basically copying it directly address basis, right? Because the value is address. So we have to somehow prevent that and do a data member on data member basis of cloning. So how to do that? So that if you go to the code over here, okay. So in order to do that, so like over here, we have this birthday date type object in employee class. This is the same kind of situation. We have an employee object, a name and salary is there, but birthday type is also, a date type is also there. Now date is a class. Date is a user defined class, which we have at the bottom over here. Date class is there. So obviously the problem was just the same. When I change the date later on after cloning, both the date will get changed for the previous object as well. Okay, so if that is the situation, how to modify my clone method? The signature still remains same. Now this will change. First of all, before coming to this, we have to do one more thing. Since now I want to do the cloning for birthday, the date object as well. So I have to make sure that first of all, date class also has the clone functionalities implemented. So just like employee class, I will also implement the clonable interface in the date class, right? That is, the date class means the data member which is there as a reference variable. So the object type data member present inside the class, right? So over here, like in our example, date is corresponding to B in our notes example. So the date is basically analogy, the corresponding class for B class. So here we have to implement clonable. So in our note, we have to, in the B class, I have to write implements clonable. And I have to write the normal clone method overriding for B class as well. In this case, date class. So that is for the B class or date class, but we have to also make changes in the clone method of the, in our example, A class, and in this case, employee class. So what is that thing? So that we will see now. So first of all, I will do normal cloning, which is I am calling the super.clone. As usual, I was returning super.clone in the previous cloning, right? So here also I'm doing super.clone. That is the first thing. And then storing the value in an employee tab reference variable. So normal, just same thing, right? But after that, see what I am doing. So since the problem is with the birthday type, date type or data member, which is basically this object type data member, that is, in this case, the object type is date. So the birthday is the problematic data member. So I have already cloned, I mean, overridden the clone method for birthday. So I will just use the clone method for birthday, I mean, for date type, to do the cloning for this reference type explicitly, right? So just one more level I'm adding. So here I'm writing this temp, which I already cloned earlier. So this, till this point, after this line is executed, it's like the normal cloning, which was taking place previously. So now if I change the birthday, it will get reflected. But I don't want that to happen, and therefore I will separately clone that object, birthday object as well. So therefore here I'm doing temp.birthday equal to this.birthday.clone. This is basically, I mean, the current pointer, current object, that's birthday I'm cloning. So this.birthday.clone, right? And then I'm returning the newly gotten employee object, right? So if I do that, then basically this will work. And this is what we call deep cloning. And then if I change the birthday as well, it will work. I mean, see, as you see over here, I am e6.set birthday we have done. So we are basically changing the birthday. First I have done e5, first we have created e5 from e6, right? E5 is there, e6 we have created with e5 by e5.clone. So once we have cloned it, later on we are changing e6, but this change of e6 will not get reflected on the birthday of e5 later on. Okay, so yeah, so unless and until you do that newly this new cloning over here, if you change the birthday for one, the other one will also get changed, because birthday is a reference type, object type variable. So that is deep cloning. Okay, so I think there was one program with cloning. Yeah. So we have the interface vehicle, and we have one method. Vehicle and clonable are implemented, right? We have this car, constructor, mileage, and we have the clone method overridden over here. Public car, clone, throws, clone not supported exception. Super.clone, everything is okay. Creating a car, then car1.clone doing, right? Part 2, car1.mileage equal to 30. We are setting it up to mileage. Mileage is set up to 30. First of all, see, mileage is what type? Mileage is integer type. So don't worry anything. So mileage is integer, so it will be cloned normally. So then car1.mileage plus car2.mileage, we are summing it up. So 30 and 25 is 55. It will be printed. There is nothing else over here. It's clone not supported exception. Yeah. So yeah, simple. 55 will be printed. There is nothing, I don't know, it's quite easy. So yeah. In case you are given deep cloning, right, only be worried, or not worried, basically be alert whether the data member type or object type. If in case the object type data members are used, see whether the clone method is modified or not. So like the way we have done over here, is the clone method modified like this or not? If the modification is not done, so in that case, that reference type will not be cloned properly, right? The primitive type will be cloned properly, but the reference type, any changes to the reference type will be reflected on the previous object as well. So please be aware of that. So we can have questions like that where we have basically have a reference type as a data member, and then we have done the cloning, and then we have changed the variables value, and then we are asking you what is the printed value. So please see in that case whether the deep cloning is implemented or not. In case the deep cloning is implemented, you can see that the cloning of both of them will be done separately, and none of change to one will not make a change to the other one. But in case the deep cloning is not done, so then in that case, the primitive types will not get into trouble. They change in one type, one primitive type will not make a change in another primitive type, but the reference type will change. Change in any one of the reference type data member will make a difference in the, or basically the difference will be reflected in another reference type variable. So please be aware of that. Okay. So, but yeah.
Sir, only the super.clone, okay, is going to invoke the clone written in the object, the root object, right, sir?
Yeah.
So how does he know that whatever class is now implementing this clone has how many data members and all? So how is that happening? Let's say all are primitive also, no problem. But how does super.clone know if there are 3 data members or 5? And
so you are calling it from the context of that class, na? The child class. So what I mean is, so when you, let's say when you call the super.clone over here, then, yeah. So when you call this object class clone method from here, so that will basically return you. If you want to say that how does that object know what is there present inside the subclasses as its data member or anything? So that is the reason. So if the internal working is such that, first of all, when you mention the clonable interface, Java will keep track. So you have worked the reflection, studied the reflection framework, right? So the reflection framework, like internally a metadata is maintained regarding all the things which is present. So once you write the clonable, implements clonable, Java will have this metadata information internally maintained, and then it will supply that to the object class, that from whichever context you are calling the super.clone, that information will be provided to the object class. And internally, that's how it works.
Right.
But again, the exact details of that is not in our, let's say, scope of discussion. Correct.
Yes.
Because the problem is, you see that one keyword called native, right? So that native keyword, whenever you see the native word used in any Java program or library, that means that is something very, very, you should be careful with that. And therefore, native means it will not be allowed. The meaning of native is not that, but if you see native, that means that that function or that part of the code is something which Java doesn't want you to work with, or let's say tamper with. Okay, but native primarily means where some other languages are also involved internally in the functioning of that particular part of the code. But that's something different. We are not going into that discussion. So hopefully for your exam, this part is important. Please observe this, and if you have any doubt in any of these 3 lines of code, ask me. Otherwise, then there is nothing else to cloning. This is important. Okay, so now cloning is done. And the example, as you see, that the previous year question, it was so easy, right? Nothing else. So these examples are the tough ones. So if you understand these programs which we discuss, at least in the live session or in the code walkthrough session, I hope you will be able to answer most questions. So please be aware of the concepts. Okay, so in that, I prefer to do the next this higher order function and lambda and all these things in the next session. That would be better, I think. Saturday session, most probably Ubra will take, but before that one session, I think the TA session, most probably I think I will take. I'm not sure about that. Let me just do that and talk with Cobra. We will manage something. So we'll cover week 8 details as well as solve some question from week 5 and 6 in the next revision session. I don't want to continue today because it's a little bit late and I'm also sick. So we will do this higher order function and this thing in the next session, and also some questions from week 5 and 6. Hopefully. Sure. So I think you guys also have a live session now, right? From I think MAD or some other subject. So maybe we'll do that in the next session anyway. Fine. So we have completed week 7 mostly. Week 8 cloning has been done. Week 8 higher order function and stream is left. So these 2 topics are left from week 8 that we will do in the next session. Sure. Anyone has any doubt, by the way, any specific doubt I can clear, I can discuss, but the whole one by one, I don't want to discuss all the concept for higher order function now. We want to do that on a fresh day. So anyone else has any doubt in a specific part, you can ask, otherwise we will stop the session.
Sir, I have one doubt, but after you stop the recording.
Okay, okay, fine. So anyone else? Chalo then. Adarsh, I think you can ask. I'm stopping it.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Actually, my doubt is this, that you had mentioned